I always thought I had a pretty normal life. My parents, Sarah and Tom, were the kind of people who made you feel safe. They had a small house in a quiet neighborhood in suburban America, where the streets were lined with maple trees and kids rode their bikes until dusk. I was the typical teenager, balancing school, friends, and the occasional drama that came with being 16. But everything changed one rainy afternoon when I stumbled upon a box in the attic. It was an unassuming cardboard box, dusty and tucked away in a corner, half hidden beneath old blankets and forgotten toys. I had been searching for my old baseball glove, but curiosity got the better of me. I pulled the box into the light and opened it, revealing a collection of faded photographs, letters, and documents. As I sifted through the contents, my heart raced. There were pictures of people I didn't recognize, and letters addressed to my parents that were filled with strange names and places. One letter caught my eye. It was dated over 20 years ago and was signed by someone named Elena. The words were filled with urgency and emotion, speaking of a promise and a secret that needed to be kept. My hands trembled as I read the lines, each word pulling me deeper into a web of confusion. Who was Elena? Why had my parents kept this from me? I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I had always believed my parents were honest, that they had given me a solid foundation of love and trust. But now, I felt a wave of betrayal wash over me. How could they hide something so significant? I wanted to confront them immediately, but a part of me hesitated. What if I was misinterpreting everything? What if there was a reasonable explanation? That evening, I sat at the dinner table, my mind racing. My parents chatted about their day, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside me. I watched them, searching for clues in their expressions, their laughter. They seemed so normal, so untroubled. But I felt like a stranger in my own home, grappling with a truth that was slowly unraveling. After dinner, I retreated to my room, the box still fresh in my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling of anger and sadness that clung to me. I felt like a ghost in my own life, haunted by the shadows of secrets. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but I also felt a deep sense of shame. What if I was overreacting? What if I was just a teenager looking for drama where there was none? Days passed, and I couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty. I began to notice small things, my parents' furtive glances, the way they would change the subject when I brought up family history. It was as if they were living in a world where I didn't belong, and I was desperate to break through the walls they had built. Finally, I decided to confront them. I chose a quiet Sunday afternoon, the kind of day that felt heavy with unspoken words. I sat them down in the living room, my heart pounding in my chest. I found something in the attic, I began, my voice trembling. Something about our family. Their expressions shifted instantly, a mix of surprise and fear. My mother's eyes widened, and my father's jaw clenched. What did you find? My mother asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. I found letters and photos. Who is Elena? What are you hiding from me? The silence that followed was deafening. I could see the pain etched on their faces, the conflict raging within them. My father finally spoke, his voice heavy with emotion. It's not what you think, honey. We wanted to protect you. Protect me? The word echoed in my mind, but all I felt was anger. Protect me from what? The truth? Tears filled my mother's eyes as she looked at me, and I felt a pang of sadness. I didn't want to hurt them, but I was drowning in a sea of confusion and betrayal. Please, just tell me, I pleaded, my voice breaking. And that's when the dam broke. They began to share a story that shattered everything I thought I knew about my life. They spoke of a past filled with choices made in desperation, of a family that wasn't mine, of a lineage that had been hidden away to protect me from a world that could be cruel and unforgiving. As they spoke, I felt a whirlwind of emotions, pain, anger, sadness, and a deep sense of loss. I was left grappling with the reality that my entire life had been built on a foundation of lies. The truth was a heavy burden, and I didn't know how to carry it. In that moment, I realized that the world I had known was crumbling around me. My parents' words painted a picture of a life I had never imagined. They spoke of a different country, a different culture, and a different family that had been left behind. I was not just Sarah and Tom's daughter, I was a part of a story that stretched far beyond the confines of our suburban home. As they recounted their past, I felt a mix of emotions swirling within me. Betrayal was the most prominent, a sharp knife twisting in my gut. How could they have kept this from me? I had trusted them implicitly, and now I felt like a fool. But beneath that betrayal lay a deep sadness. I was losing the parents I thought I knew, the ones who had shaped my identity and my understanding of love. My father's voice trembled as he spoke of their decision to leave everything behind. "We thought it was for the best," he said, his eyes filled with regret. "We wanted to give you a chance at a normal life, away from the chaos of our past." But what was normal? I had always thought my life was ordinary, but now I felt like a character in a story I didn't belong to. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but instead, I sat there, feeling the weight of their choices pressing down on me. My mother reached out, her hand trembling as she placed it on mine. "We love you, and we thought we were protecting you. We didn't want you to carry the burden of our past." But I was already carrying it. The truth was a heavy cloak draped over my shoulders, suffocating me. I felt anger bubbling to the surface, a tempest of emotions threatening to spill over. "You should have trusted me," I said, my voice rising. "I could have handled the truth." "Could you?" my father shot back, his voice laced with frustration. "You have no idea what we went through. We didn't want you to suffer the way we did." His words struck a chord, and I felt a flicker of understanding. They had made their choices out of love, but that didn't lessen the pain I felt. I was caught in a web of mixed feelings: anger at their deception, sadness for the life I thought I had, and a strange sense of shame for wanting to know more. As the conversation continued, I learned about my parents' origins. They had fled their homeland, a place filled with turmoil and strife, seeking refuge in America. They had changed their names, their identities, and had built a life from the ground up, all while keeping their past a secret. I listened, my heart heavy with the weight of their sacrifices. But with each revelation, I felt a growing sense of despair. Who was I, really? I had always identified as an American teenager, but now I felt like a stranger in my own skin. The truth was a double-edged sword, cutting through the fabric of my identity. After hours of conversation, I felt emotionally drained. My parents had shared their story, but I was left with more questions than answers. I needed time to process everything, to come to terms with the reality of my life. I excused myself and retreated to my room, the weight of the world pressing down on me. As I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I felt a tempest of emotions swirling within me. I was angry at my parents for their deception, but I also felt a deep sadness for the life they had left behind. I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal, but I also understood their motivations. They had acted out of love, but that didn't make the pain any less real. Days turned into weeks, and I found myself in a constant state of turmoil. I struggled to navigate my relationships with my parents, feeling a chasm growing between us. I wanted to forgive them, to understand their choices, but the anger lingered like a dark cloud. I began to withdraw from my friends, feeling like I was living in a different world. I couldn't share my feelings with them. How could I explain the chaos in my heart? I felt isolated, trapped in a reality that felt foreign and unwelcoming. One evening, as I sat alone in my room, I made a decision. I needed to learn more about my past, to uncover the truth that had been hidden from me. I couldn't let my parents' choices define me. I needed to take control of my own narrative. I started my search online, diving into the world of genealogy and family history. I spent hours poring over records, trying to piece together the fragments of my identity. With each discovery, I felt a mix of excitement and fear. What if I uncovered something I wasn't ready to face? But I was determined. The more I delved into the research, the more I felt a sense of urgency. I was no longer just a teenager grappling with the typical struggles of adolescence. I was a seeker of my own history, a detective in a mystery that had been woven into the fabric of my life. I started with the names I had seen in the letters Elena, and others that felt foreign yet strangely familiar. I typed them into search engines, hoping to find connections, to unearth stories that had been buried for too long. Each click brought a mix of anticipation and dread. What if I found something that shattered the fragile understanding I had of my parents? One evening, after hours of searching, I stumbled upon a forum dedicated to families who had emigrated from my parents' homeland. I felt a spark of hope. I joined the discussion, sharing my story and asking if anyone had heard of my parents or the names I had found. The responses came flooding in, each one a thread that could lead me closer to the truth. As I connected with others who shared similar backgrounds, I felt a sense of belonging that had been missing in my life. They understood the complexities of identity, the struggle of reconciling two worlds. I began to feel less alone, but the question still loomed large. What had my parents left behind? What sacrifices had they made to give me the life I had known? One night, I received a private message from a woman named Maria. She claimed to have known my parents before they emigrated. My heart raced as I read her words. She offered to share her memories, to help me understand the life they had left behind. I hesitated, a mix of excitement and fear coursing through me. What if her stories painted my parents in a light I wasn't ready to see? But I couldn't turn back now. I arranged to meet Maria at a local cafe, my heart pounding with anticipation. As I walked through the door, I spotted her sitting at a corner table, her warm smile instantly putting me at ease. She was older, with silver hair and kind eyes that sparkled with wisdom. "Thank you for meeting me," I said, taking a seat across from her. "Of course, dear. I've been waiting for this moment," she replied, her voice soothing. "Your parents were brave to leave everything behind. They made a choice to protect you, but it came at a cost." As she spoke, I felt a mix of emotions wash over me. Maria shared stories of my parents' lives before they came to America, of the struggles they faced, the love they shared, and the dreams they had for their future. I listened intently, my heart aching for the sacrifices they had made. "They were young and scared," Maria said, her eyes glistening with nostalgia. "But they had hope. They wanted a better life for you, a life free from the pain of their past." With each story, I felt the anger I had harbored begin to dissipate, replaced by a deep sense of empathy. I could see my parents as young people, filled with dreams and fears, making choices in a world that felt uncertain. They had chosen to shield me from their struggles, but in doing so, they had created a chasm between us. As our conversation continued, Maria revealed more about the community my parents had left behind. She spoke of the vibrant culture, the traditions, and the people who had shaped their lives. I felt a longing to connect with that part of my heritage, to understand the roots that had been severed. "Your parents loved you fiercely," Maria said, her voice filled with warmth. "They wanted to give you a chance to thrive, to be free from the burdens they carried." I nodded, tears welling in my eyes. I had spent so much time feeling betrayed, but now I understood the depth of their love. They had made sacrifices I could hardly comprehend, and in their quest to protect me, they had inadvertently created a barrier that had left me feeling lost. As I left the cafe, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. I needed to confront my parents again, to share what I had learned and to express my desire to understand our shared history. I wanted to bridge the gap that had formed between us, to create a space where we could all be honest about our pasts. That evening, I gathered my parents in the living room once more. The atmosphere was tense, but I was determined to break through the walls that had been built. "I met someone today," I began, my voice steady. "Her name is Maria, and she knew you before you came to America." Their expressions shifted, a mix of surprise and apprehension. "What did she say?" my mother asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "She shared stories about your lives back home, about the community you left behind. She spoke of the love you had for each other and the dreams you held for me. I understand now that you made sacrifices to protect me, but I need you to know that I want to understand our past. I want to know who I am." Tears filled my mother's eyes as she listened, and I could see the conflict in my father's expression. "It's not that we didn't want you to know," he said, his voice thick with emotion. We thought it would be easier for you if you didn't have to carry the weight of our history." "But it's my history too," I replied, my voice firm yet gentle. "I can't move forward without knowing where I came from. I want to embrace all of it, the good and the bad. I want to understand the choices you made and the life you left behind." My mother reached for my hand, her grip trembling. We were scared, honey. We thought we were doing the right thing by keeping you safe. But we see now that we were wrong to keep you in the dark. My father nodded, his eyes filled with regret. We should have trusted you. We should have shared our story with you. It was never about hiding the truth, it was about protecting you from the pain we experienced. As we sat together, the air felt charged with a new understanding. I could see the love in their eyes, the desire to connect and heal the rift that had formed between us. I want to hear everything, I said, my voice softening. I want to know about your lives, your struggles, and the people who shaped you. I want to know about Elena and the promise you made. My parents exchanged glances, and I could see the weight of their past pressing down on them. It's a long story, my father said, his voice heavy with emotion. But if you're ready, we'll share it with you. And so, they began to recount their lives before America, their childhoods, the friendships they had forged, the dreams they had nurtured. They spoke of the political turmoil that had forced them to flee, the heart-wrenching decisions they had made to leave family behind, and the hope that had driven them to start anew. As they spoke, I felt a sense of connection growing between us. I was no longer just a daughter seeking answers, I was a part of their story, woven into the fabric of their lives. I listened intently, absorbing every detail, every emotion. I felt the pain of their past, but I also felt the strength of their love. When they spoke of Elena, I could see the weight of her memory in their eyes. She was a dear friend, my mother said, her voice trembling. She helped us navigate the chaos of our lives. We promised her we would keep our family safe, that we would build a life for you that was free from the pain we endured. I felt a pang of sadness for the life they had left behind, but I also felt a sense of gratitude. They had made choices that had shaped my existence, and in their sacrifices, I had found a life filled with love and opportunity. As the night wore on, we shared stories, laughter, and tears. I felt the walls that had separated us begin to crumble, replaced by a newfound understanding. We were no longer just a family bound by blood, we were a family bound by shared experiences, by the complexities of our pasts. But even as I felt a sense of healing, I knew that the journey was far from over. I still had questions, still felt the weight of uncertainty. I needed to explore my heritage further, to connect with the roots that had been hidden from me for so long. In the days that followed, I continued my research, reaching out to others in the community who shared my background. I learned about the traditions, the celebrations, and the stories that had been passed down through generations. I felt a sense of belonging that had eluded me for so long, and I was determined to embrace it fully. But with each discovery came a new wave of emotions, temptation to retreat back into the safety of ignorance, despair at the thought of confronting the complexities of my identity. I felt the pull of my parents' love, the desire to protect them from the pain of their past, but I also felt the need to honor my own journey. One evening, as I sat with my parents, I shared my desire to visit their homeland, to see the places they had spoken of, to connect with the roots of my identity. I want to understand where I come from, I said, my voice steady. I want to honor the sacrifices you made by embracing all of who I am. My parents exchanged glances, a mix of pride and concern flickering in their eyes. It's a beautiful place, but it's also filled with memories that might be painful for us, my father said, his voice low. Are you sure you're ready for that? I need to do this, I replied, feeling a surge of determination. I want to understand the life you left behind, the culture that is a part of me. I want to honor Elena's memory and the promise you made to her. I want to embrace my identity fully. After a long pause, my mother nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. If this is what you truly want, we will support you. We will go together, as a family. It's time for us to face our past, to confront the memories we've kept hidden for so long. The decision to travel back to my parents' homeland felt monumental. I spent weeks preparing, researching the places they had spoken of, the people they had known. I felt a mix of excitement and trepidation, knowing that this journey would be both a homecoming and a confrontation with the ghosts of the past. When the day finally arrived, I felt a whirlwind of emotions. As we boarded the plane, I held my parents' hands tightly, feeling the warmth of their love and support. The flight was long, and as we soared through the clouds, I couldn't help but wonder what awaited us on the other side. When we landed, the air was thick with nostalgia. My parents' faces lit up with recognition as we stepped into the bustling streets. I could see the memories flooding back to them, the sights and sounds of their youth enveloping us like a warm embrace. I felt a sense of belonging wash over me, as if I were stepping into a world that had been waiting for me all along. We spent the first few days visiting the places my parents had called home. They introduced me to old friends, people who had known them before they became my parents. I listened intently as they shared stories of their childhood, their laughter echoing through the streets. I felt a connection to this place, a sense of history that resonated deep within me. But as we delved deeper into their past, I could see the shadows of pain lurking beneath the surface. My parents spoke of loss, of loved ones left behind, and the sacrifices they had made to build a new life. I felt a pang of sorrow for the life they had left behind, for the memories that haunted them. One evening, we visited a small cafe where my parents had spent countless hours with friends. As we sat together, I could see the weight of their memories pressing down on them. "This is where we made our promise to Elena," my mother said, her voice trembling. "We promised to keep our family safe, to build a life filled with love." I felt a surge of emotion as I listened to her words. "You did that," I said softly. "You gave me a life filled with love and opportunity. But I want to honor the past too. I want to remember Elena and the sacrifices you made." As the days turned into weeks, I found myself immersed in the culture that had shaped my parents' lives. I learned about the traditions, the celebrations, and the stories that had been passed down through generations. I felt a sense of pride in my heritage, a connection to the roots that had been hidden from me for so long. But with each discovery came a new wave of emotions, temptation to retreat back into the safety of ignorance, despair at the thought of confronting the complexities of my identity. I felt the pull of my parents' love, the desire to protect them from the pain of their past, but I also felt the need to honor my own journey. One evening, as we gathered around a table filled with traditional dishes, I looked at my parents and felt a deep sense of gratitude. "Thank you for sharing this with me," I said, my voice filled with emotion. "Thank you for trusting me with your story. I know it wasn't easy, but it means the world to me." My father smiled, his eyes glistening with tears. "We should have done this long ago. We should have trusted you with our past. You are a part of our story, and we are so proud of the person you've become." As we continued to explore my parents' homeland, I felt a sense of healing wash over us. The walls that had separated us began to crumble, replaced by a newfound understanding and connection. We were no longer just a family bound by blood, we were a family bound by shared experiences, by the complexities of our pasts. When it was time to return home, I felt a bittersweet ache in my heart. I had uncovered the truth about my origins, but I also knew that the journey was far from over. I had embraced my heritage, but I still had questions, still felt the weight of uncertainty.